Good morning. Greetings from Alaska. Fred Roll, Curry Young Tribal Council member from Dillingham, Alaska. Quick update. I did the interview yesterday with one of my relatives on camera. Sent him a copy of it to review. He didn't like being on camera, so he wants to redo it while he's off camera. And I told him, not a problem. I told him if he wanted to remain anonymous, that's fine too. All that kind of stuff. It's not in our culture, so he's a little gun shy, as far as being on camera or whatever, which, I understand. I just don't care what anyone thinks because there's too much of this stuff going on to just keep ignoring. You'll hear him tell what he's been through. And up until night before last or whenever it was, me and him, we've known each other since knee high. I have elementary school yearbooks. We're in them together, He's a relative of mine. We grew up over in Bristol Bay, commercial salmon fishermen, all that stuff. One thing I wanted to touch on is usually when stuff happens like that to any of us out in the bush, First Nations, we discuss it amongst each other a little bit. But once we get back to the village, it's not something we go downtown and oh, hey, there, we saw a hairy man up there, all this, that. It's just not what we do. So having someone else share is important to me because, like I've said, these things that happen out in the bush are not unique to me. I am nothing special when it comes to having encounters. I've had several myself, but it's not me. It's the area. He shocked me when I asked him, "Hey, you got any good hairy man stories?" Just shooting in the dark. He had called me and wanted to get something to eat when he came into town from Dillingham, and I was like, I agreed to go get something to eat. But anyway, I asked him as we're getting off the phone, by chance, any good hairy man stories, and first thing out of his mouth was Nuyakuk River. So I'll leave it at that. It was not a friendly encounter. I'll let him say it in his own words. He won't be on camera. He'll be off camera, and it's just going to be campfire style. I'm just going to chop it up with them, and it's not going to be like what day, what time, what did it. It's not even like that. We're too close for that kind of interaction. It's just going to be natural and casual. I feel it's more honest that way. It doesn't feel forced or directed or scripted. You know what I mean? I'd just rather him just tell it how he's feeling it, But while I'm here, I have something I wanted to share. Back in, it was 1998. It was the last time I attempted to stay year round in Dillingham just because the job opportunities weren't just not doable. Well, me and a guy, we'll call him William, I reached out to him. I wanted to try to get him to talk about this experience. So me and him went chicken hunting. Me and William. We went chicken hunting. He picked me up where I was staying in Dillingham there, and we went out to Lake Road. Now, spruce chickens back then, 50, 100 of them on the side of the road. It was not uncommon. We call them dumb chickens because you can get out, chuck a rock and get one, that type of thing. So we're actually just going out to be social, hang out, do our village boy thing or whatever, right? Well, we get to 13 Mile Gravel Pit on Aleknagik Road. And as we're pulling in there, they had started blocking it off. But there's trails around it for, four-wheelers and snow machines in the wintertime. So we pull up to the gate. He kills the engine. We decide we're going to hike to the back of the pit, check out this little pond that accumulated from melting, whatever it happened to be there. They developed a pond back in there, and he wanted to check it out. Someone had said a beaver was moving in there or something. So we get back in there, and it's a good 200 yards to the back of the pit, and it's approximately 75 yards wide, and then off to the left it has this huge mound of overburden that had been pushed off to the side to access more gravel and whatnot, right? So as William's walking, he handed me a little Fujifilm Instacamera thing, you know, you click, you know, disposable kind, you just turn in the whole thing to get processed. So he hands it to me and he goes, I'm going to go to the other side of the pond and I want you to take a picture of me. I'm going to walk out halfway into the pond up to my knees because he had on some hip waders. And he goes, try to squat down and get the perspective like I'm dead center in the middle of this pond. And I was like, okay. Yeah, it was just something he wanted to do. I thought nothing of it. We were armed. All I had was like a 9mm and a little holster, a little Smith & Wesson. It just noisemaker, really. Not discounting the 9mm, but here in Alaska, 9mm is, you know, you use that on people. But anyway, so as I'm talking to him and he's walking around, I was like, quit walking like an old lady. And yeah, we're guys. We bust each other's chops constantly. So he gets around there and he goes, I don't have a good spot. And I wasn't paying attention to him. Honestly, I was doing something. I had heard something back by the truck, almost like someone slammed the door of the truck. Like, who in the hell's, you know, that don't happen in Dillingham. Typically, someone's not going to go rummage through your vehicle when it's parked on the side of the road. Not typically, at least not back then. So I look back at the truck, and I'm not paying attention to him. And as I'm looking at the truck trying to figure out what that sound came from, kabloosh, I heard a splash. So I thought, oh shit, you know, William fell in the pond. So I turn around, I'm getting the little Fujifilm out of my pocket to get a picture of him. So I turn around and, you know, the pond's rippling from whatever splashed in there, and he's standing there, pale white. Click, I took the picture. Now, I just took it just because it all happened so quickly or whatever, and then I was whining it, you know, the little and I was like, what'd you throw in? Yeah, all you had to do was get my attention. And he goes, I didn't throw anything in. That came from up the hill. I was like, did it tumble down or something? I didn't hear it because normally you hear it wasn't that kind of deal. And he had this look on his face. I said, did you throw it? Are you messing with me? You know, I mean, what's going on? And he goes, I don't know, but I don't feel right. And so I started to kind of just, you know, sensing the area because, you know, we were down in the, you know, bottom of this pit. And we got walls around us and trees behind him. So there's a little bit of a bluff of the overburden line. And it's about a 4-foot height to the where the grass and the trees and the rest of the topsoil begins and then, you know, pushes back. So as I'm discussing with him, and at this time I'm continuing around the pond to come to where he is. Now, he had brought a firearm as well, but he left it in the truck. I had a 9mm on my hip, just make noise, scare bear off, you know. And the only rifle he had was like a little 410 for the dumb chickens, the spruce chickens. So as I'm talking to him, where I'd gone, the trees were behind me now. So I'm basically facing back the direction I was just at with him in between me and this little pond. And I'm like, hey, are you messing with me, man? Because this ain't cool. You know, I don't want to have something out here chucking rocks at us. And I brought up the hairy man. He goes, I think it was a hairy man. And I laughed because I wasn't mocking him. I just didn't get any sense of danger, you know, because typically the pressure changes, you know. And I'm like, so what makes you think it's a hairy man? And he points back behind over my shoulder. I thought he was joking. When I turned around, there's a birch tree, a spruce tree, and then a little thing of, I think they'd be poplars, alders, something like that. Little batch of those. And they were kind of grouped and kind of fanned out up at towards the top, almost like a willow. And behind this willow, right offset from these two, this birch and this spruce tree, was a very big dark shadow swaying back and forth. Now, if you were to initially look at this shadow moving, it would appear it was shadow blowing the wind in the leaves in the trees and stuff, because it looked very fluid, like it was happening in nature, but it was the hairy man. I was stuck. I knew what I was seeing and I knew what was going on. I had already drawn the 9mm, and I was asking him. I was like, "Do you think it's gonna follow us back to the truck? Should I shoot it?" And he's not saying nothing to me. I hear him walking behind me, and he goes over and he picks up this rock, and he goes, "I'm gonna throw a rock at it, and I'm gonna try to scare it off to give us time to get back to," because we had almost 200 yards to get back to the truck. We had a distance to go, and this thing was 50 feet away at most, and it was on an elevated position from us. I was against throwing the rock. I said, "Don't throw that rock. Let's just back out. I'll wing shots over its head, but let's get to the truck. Let's get the hell out of here." Now we go spruce chicken hunting at dusk, so it's moving towards darkness, and I don't want to freaking be out there. This thing's over there. It's doing this number back and forth, and then this kind of like a squirrel chatter, but in the cadence of a squirrel chatter, but with popping, like that. But it was very fast, very. I can't even imitate it. It was unreal fast. This little clicking pop sound. And so I tell William, I'm like, let's just slowly. Let's start walking. You walk backwards. Keep your eye on it. I'm gonna guide you, and then we'll switch. I'll turn around. I'll watch it, and then you guide us. So we keep an eye on this thing. And I brought up to him. I said, also look around when you're not looking directly at it. When you're the one leading, check our flanks. Make sure there's none moving around us. Now, when I speak of these things, and how they operate and how they seem to move. Now, this is all speculation. I'm not an expert on this shit. But one thing I've noticed is typically, not all the time, but for the most part, if one's letting you see it, there's others around, right? So I talk him out of throwing the rock, and we're backing away. And the whole time, this thing's just doing this number. Just swaying back and forth, every once in a while doing that kind of sound. And it didn't like lunge or do any kind of sudden like aggressive stuff per se. And just this mere presence was the feeling in the air. It's hard to explain when you can sit there and stare at something and it's not moving. Well, it's not saying anything to you, but yet you're in the presence of something that puts a fear in you that you can't shake. You can't sit there and make something good of it. I only say these things because this is what I've experienced in Alaska. Let me be clear. I'm not trying to speak anything on the lower 48. That you guys got generational, populations that have been through those areas. So far different dynamic as far as overall population and potential interaction. Up here in Alaska, we're so isolated. I think that's a contributing factor to how aggressive they get, because they haven't had the, outside of the villagers and stuff that, from what I'm told, they snatch us, eat us, all this stuff. Anyway, let me continue. I'm sorry, I go off on tangents every once in a while. I apologize. I want people to understand that up here in Alaska, it's not, for one, not unique to me. And two, this creature up here doesn't seem to want anything to do with us, which, hey, is probably getting shot at all the time, honestly. So we're backing away, and William decides I'm gonna toss this rock down. When he gets rid of the rock out of his hand, because I had him, hey, just make sure I'm not going to trip over anything. I want to keep an eye on it till we get a little further away, since I have the gun in my hand. Now, as I'm walking backwards, and I told him check our flanks and everything, he's looking in the pit. He's looking left and right in the pit. We're at the bottom of the pit. The pit walls go up, and there's trees up there. So I'm pointing out, hey, look up the hills too. Now, as I say, look up the hills too, we hear a god-awful scream coming from back by that damn truck where we're going. Like, I didn't know whether to shit or go blind, because at this point, I've never had. They usually shake a tree, scream, you leave the area, and they stay a certain distance typically, but they let it be known that they don't want you around. They'll throw stuff, shake a tree, break limbs, that type of stuff. Well, we heard the scream, and all our plans went out the window as far as we're gonna take turns leapfrogging, paying attention, looking around. No, none of that shit. We immediately start just haul assing towards the truck. Now, the scream just came from that direction, but for us, if we could get to the truck, that means we could get out of there, And so William is booking. I've seen this guy run before. He was running, so I was keeping up, and we get up by the truck, and off on the side, just off to our left, where that scream came from, because we got the iron fence, the 2 swinging iron gates for the pit, and we're on the opposite side of that. And off to the left, a tree line starts, and then it goes up a berm that wraps that wall back towards the pond where we were just behind us. So about halfway up this incline, just in the tree line, I seen it. It was sitting there doing this number, just kind of bobbing and looking back and forth, just doing this. And there was something in the look in its eye. It didn't come at us, but the way it was looking it wasn't just like looking at us curious, like just looking at our form. It was looking me in my eyes. Like, as soon as I saw it, it looked directly at me. There was nothing there as far as, like, it was obviously intelligent. But what I mean by nothing there is it looked like dead black eyes just staring a hole through me. Knowing it was a little further away and not immediately by the truck, all this happened in a brief second as we were running along, and I glanced up, and then I made eye contact, and it was doing its thing or whatever, doing this number. All this happened relatively quickly because we slid under the gate, jumped in the truck, and I'm trying to look up the hill at the one I deem is more of a threat. It's closer, this type of thing. Well, the one that was at the back of the pit that he saw over my shoulder and all that, it was actually in the middle of the pit. And I had this Fujifilm camera, right? So I'm like, I'm going to get a picture of that. And I'm getting it ready to go. And as I'm getting ready, the windshield's all filthy. It's Dillingham. This is back before the road was paved all the way out to the lakes. So there's a lot of dust and grime and stuff. Well, as I was going to hop out to take a picture of this thing out in the middle of the pit, and just to we had a camera, why not, right? Well, I'm getting ready to jump out the door to get, at least open it up and get outside to, get a clear picture of it without the filthy windshield. I went to grab the doorknob, and William grabbed my leg and shook it. And I looked over at him, 3 feet roughly from his door. I couldn't even see it all the way, but there was another one standing next to the truck on his side. So we just left. He backed out of there. We almost got stuck backing out because we flew across the lake road into the opposite ditch and had to ride the ditch until he could make it back up onto the road. That was creepy from the standpoint of they basically had us encircled. Had we not, now there's an argument to be made, if they really wanted to hurt us, we wouldn't have made it out of the pit, and fair enough. But what was the point of them showing themselves? What was the point of the eye contact and the there's so many unknowns with this. That's why it bothers me, and I'm trying to coax my fellow First Nations, come forward, share what you've seen, um, and let's get some data together. Let's see if there's something we can figure out about it, because there's so many unknowns. It's all speculation. I can assume what they wanted. I can assume it was bad. I can assume a lot of things. Grant you, I'm biased, so I immediately swing to it was nefarious. It was trying to, size us up to get us. But that's me, and that's not fair to the situation. It's just how I felt inside with how the stuff was transpiring, and in many of the cases, like when we were attacked on the Nuyakuk, I've heard several people say, hey, they didn't hurt you, they could have got you, you weren't hurt. I say bullshit. I no longer have a relationship with those family members, and they were a large part of my life up to that point. I miss them and I love them, and that whole thing just kind of separated us, because I wanted to talk about it and they didn't, and it does a lot of damage to keep these kind of things in. I know it's real easy for people to just fluff it. Oh, they're just stories, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I understand. It's good to be skeptical, but everyone wants to see one until they do. And then when they do, they want nothing else to do with going back out in the woods, typically. But I have the interview with Nick coming up here. I should have it uploaded by the end of the day. He didn't want to be on camera. I respect that. Love the guy. I've known him forever. And you can hear what he has to say. And I'll state it again. None of this crap is unique to me. There are so many of us from the remote villages that have had encounters that would, to an outside person, would seem, oh, geez, that's outlandish shit, you got these guys claiming all this stuff is going on, but yet, there's no news reports of this and that. Yeah. And there's a reason why. The ridicule. No one wants to be looked at as, oh, that's that guy that goes and, talks to the hairy man. Because even though 98% of the villagers know the hairy man's real, maybe 2% will acknowledge it. And it's all socially oppressed, because they feel they're going to be mocked or ridiculed. I mean, I'm 46 now. I'm over giving a shit what anyone thinks. I'm just going to tell what I know, share what I've experienced, and hopefully encourage others to come forth with what they have. You can remain anonymous, you can come on camera, however you want to do it, but I want the Alaskan-based stuff to be shared. All these outside entities bringing this foo-foo Hollywood garbage hype to every aspect of Alaska, and they use just enough truth that's compelling to get people to come back for the next episode, promising meat and potatoes, and you don't even end up with potato skins at the end of the series. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully Nick won't be overly nervous when we redo the interview. He was a little nervous on camera, which is understandable. Just keep in mind when you do hear the interview, he's not in it for anything. He's not getting paid for any of it. He's getting nothing but it off his chest, and I'm gonna let him speak to it how he speaks to it. And we'll leave it at that. Anyone who wants to share their experiences they've had in Alaska, AlaskanHairymanProject@gmail.com, or nocomp907@gmail.com, and I'll be back with y'all later on today with that interview. All right, thanks.